All right, you miserable accursed, and miserable it is on a cold Tuesday morning here at 6:30 in Toronto. I've assembled a team of crack political forensic experts to dissect this campaign that's going on. Left to right on my radio dial is Jordan Leichnitz, Scott Reid, and Deb Hutton. Good to see you all this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's not as bad today as will be the next 2 days, because the next 2 days it's going to be compounded with sleet and snow up to 25 centimeters in Toronto.
Right.
Hey, and 40 in Ottawa, Jordan.
That's okay. That's okay. Shortly, I'm going to be somewhere warmer, so I just have to make it until then.
Hey, somebody do something that may not happen for the rest of the show. Say something interesting.
Way to put us on the
about
spot.
about Ontario politics?
Yeah, exactly.
Election. I don't know. David, why don't you drop to the floor and do a few push-ups?
Yeah, say over under how many push-ups
Let's see a little
everyone in
burst
this
of
podcast can do.
physical expression.
Well, in order to understand the pugilistic Ms. Crombie yesterday, let's start with our polling. Today's Relay Strategies polling is brought to you by Enbridge Gas, reliable, affordable natural gas to heat your homes and power our economy. So, what do we got today? The same thing as we had yesterday, and the same thing as we had when we started. So, honest to God, nothing's happening in this election campaign, right? The more I look at this data, the more I see it's just been bouncing around the margin of error, and nothing is really happening. So when I first reported vote intention data to you, on February the 2nd, it was 50 for Ford, 25 for Crombie and the Liberals, and 16 for Stiles and the NDP. And today, week and a half of a campaign gone by, 50 Ford, 22 Crombie Liberal, 19 Stiles NDP. So it is possible that there's some gradual softening of the Liberal vote and some marginal improvement of the NDP vote. But to be honest, those movements are within the margin of error. And so, you know,
but outside the margin of hope for New Democrats. David.
Outside the margin of hope. Fair enough. And you know what? I'll give you one more piece of hope, because I was rolling through the crosstabs last night trying to find something interesting. And I'm telling you that those Green voters are lefties. Those Green voters hate Ford, right? And they are they are potential NDP voters more than they are anybody else's voters, but they're not.
There's some time to shake them loose towards the end of the campaign.
Right. So, Deb, it's the morning call. It's the morning call. You're in the Liberal war room.
Oh, okay.
Herle,
Right.
you couldn't sound more lifeless if you were John Lennon. My God, man.
I mean, in fairness, like David is really inhabiting that mid-campaign, like, you know, that feeling like, can I do this all over again? Are we all going to die? Morning meeting, low energy that does happen mid-campaign. So this is actually pretty authentic.
I am the walrus.
It's the belugas we're talking about today from
That's right.
Marineland, not
enough.
the walrus.
Fair enough. So debates are coming up. So there's that to look forward to. Deb, you're in the Liberal war room, and you're saying what?
Healthcare. And I think that's where Bonnie was yesterday doing debate prep. And so having a really honed debate strategy that is very personal on Doug, I would go old school on this stuff. It is, you know, Joni from Belleville. It is, which probably a relative of Scott's. It is Mary from Northern Ontario. Here's what happened. Here's how many hours her kid was in the ER waiting. Here's how far she has to go to get a doctor. I mean, all that stuff, personal anecdotes against the premier, because it makes him uncomfortable. Because he is a good guy. He likes people. He loves little, you know, interactions with individuals. So put it to him directly and get your debate. It's the only hope they've got. The other challenge this morning is it's Washington Day.
Yeah.
And the premier has a international platform, quite frankly, which is hard to beat. So I think you probably do a quick announcement this morning, a quick announcement tomorrow morning on healthcare, and then you go to debate prep and let the premier have his day.
So more days roll by with nothing happening. Can I just challenge you for one thing on your healthcare?
Yeah.
And the other two, you feel free to jump in here. They've been doing that. We've been telling them to do that.
Yep.
And they've been doing that. Perhaps not with the religious fervor that we would have liked, but nonetheless, they are doing it. Day one of our tracking on our baseline sample, which party is best able to handle healthcare?
Right.
Okay. Answer for the Liberals was on day one, 28% said they were the best able to handle healthcare. What is the answer 10 days later? 27.
But David, there's nothing right now where the Liberals really are leading that'll take them to the finish line, I think, any better than healthcare. So I'm not suggesting the data supports it, but I am saying the data doesn't support a hell of a lot else if you're Bonnie Crombie. I don't think she can go toe-to-toe in any way, shape, or form with the premier on the Trump tariffs. And because of steel and aluminum yesterday, because of the Washington trip today and tomorrow, it's a really tough one for her to get around. And in fact, I think the risk for all of them is that in criticizing the premier for his trip today, they start to get a little offside with our sort of pro-Canada, anti-Trump messaging. Like I heard Mike Schreiner say that this was a vanity trip for the premier. So you can say it's not an appropriate use of his time. I think it gets hard when he's down there actually meeting with people and selling the message that we're stronger together than we are when Trump beats us up.
To be clear, I think also Ford is really going to benefit from the fact that Trump had a brain fart on the plane to the Super Bowl and imposed these steel and aluminum tariffs. Like it wasn't actually clear, I think, 2 days ago, for example, that the trip was going to be such a boon. But it works out for him well because this is now fresh in the news cycle again. But I do think there is a way to criticize it. And I think it's more to say that Ford should be here in Ontario answering for his record to Ontarians, not in another country during the election. This is the moment where people really get to ask him some serious questions about healthcare and other things. And so I think there is a way to do it without getting offside on some of the national question stuff. And I think I think Ford himself sometimes has strayed a little bit onto the wrong side of that debate. We talked a little bit about yesterday. I thought it was really weird that he was going on the fentanyl czar stuff again. Like, I think we all just sort of, as a country, agree that that is a not real, made up thing that we did to please the orange man. And if Pokeroo's not going to take the job, maybe we can find a beaver in a cool hat or something. But I don't think it really reflects a strong desire on the part of people to fortify the border with this fentanyl czar. And to have Ford out there echoing that, I think it just shows his approach on that. It's not 100% clean. So I think there's some room in there for the other parties to criticize as he goes down south. And I think that they should do that because having him absent himself during an Ontario election is a major departure.
Well, except you had the tariff announcement Monday. And you're right. I mean, it was a boon to Ford. But I mean, he was going to make the case, look at what the next 4 years are going to be like. And you need somebody that's strong in the premier's chair to be able to deal with it on Ontario's behalf. So I think you need to be cautious if you're opposition in your language. I thought Mike Schreiner, as an example, saying it's a vanity trip was offside and didn't look great. So not that anyone's paying attention.
Just to be clear, best able to deal with Trump is Ford 55, Crombie 27, Stiles 18. So if that's the issue, it's going bad. Scott, wedge your way in here.
Well, I mean, to your point, David, about how healthcare hasn't punched through yet, I guess my only reaction to that is that the best strategy isn't always necessarily a winning strategy. Like, there's no guarantee. You still have to even if the mountain is miles high, you still have to take the shortest route. Doesn't mean you're going to make it to the summit. And that's the challenge for the Liberals right now. And that's the challenge in this moment. That's probably why they're feeling about the same amount of energy right now that you are. But the other thing is, people listening may be interested in this and interested in what you had to say about it, David. I mean, if we can't beat up on this campaign because there's nothing happening. Let's beat up on our pollster, Kyla. So here's what Liberals are saying, because I talked to some of them yesterday. They are looking at the Nanos poll and looking at, a day of CP24 headlines yesterday. So if you're living in Toronto, CP24 is on everywhere you go, every elevator, every bar, every restaurant. And it has Nick Nanos saying that the Liberals have pulled firmly into second place, that they're at 31, that they're like 15 points behind Ford, closing the gap with him, way above Mark. So they're not solely relying on the number set that we have. They're looking at that number. They're looking at that media platform and thinking to themselves, hey, you know what? We're on the right track. We have been gaining traction on healthcare, the concentrated effort the last 3-4 days. Let's keep at it. So people, I think, always ask this question, Herle, which is, how come you pollsters all say something different?
They don't all say something different. I actually haven't seen Nick. I'm not a subscriber of Nick's service, so I haven't seen Nick's detailed data. I don't know how many cases it was. And normally he does 100 or so a week tracking. So he can be a little. I think his stuff can be choppier, but I honestly don't know what is going on in this instance. But even if the baselines were different, we're just not seeing any movement, right? Since I beat up on the Liberals, let me beat it up on. He is showing
something. My point isn't that Kyla's wrong. My point is that when you're in a campaign and you don't like the numbers you're seeing, there is a natural tendency to gravitate toward the public set of numbers you do like. And so the only thing I will caution is that this looks like a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. No one here is cracking a smile. No one here has an ounce of hope. They feel a little bit differently. They're looking at the Nanos numbers and they're saying, hey, you know what? There is movement. We are pulling away from Styles and we are closing it with Ford. And sure, there's a long way to go. We may not win, but we think we're on the right wicket. So their energy is a little different than this pod.
Okay. Well, my energy is great. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's having a good time. And I'd say Mart and the NDP are feeling pretty good this week too. Well,
let me just fucking throw a spanner in those works then. Favorability of Marit Styles, day one, 24%.
Have you pulled on Marit and Merit? Because I heard that Merit is way, way more popular than Marit.
It's Marit like car, okay?
Carit.
All right.
All of your leaders, the name is said wrong. It's weird. Anyway,
just me, Marit.
Just making sure you're paying attention. Jesus.
Day one, 24%
favor Lewis
for Marit Styles. Yesterday, 26%. So it's my feeling that this campaign is settled. All right. I'll give you one fun thing to talk about. Let's talk about crossed. Let's talk about the gender split, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about the gender split.
I feel like you're Rocky now. You're like, I can punch you with the right hand or I can punch you with my left hand.
This is good. David's got a little gift for everybody today.
Yeah, I do. So the vote among men in Ontario. The vote among men in Ontario is 60-1 for Ford. Okay?
Yeah.
19.
As someone who spends between 11 and 19 hours a day in a bar, I can attest that is absolutely accurate.
61% for Ford, 19% for Crombie, 13% for Styles. But of course, there's a massive gender gap. And so what that means is that among women, it's Ford 40, Crombie 25, Styles 24. It's still a beating among women, right? Men is a savage beating. Women is just a normal majority government, right?
Yeah, okay. The numbers are holding though. Yeah. And even Nanos, his sort of gap narrowing is within the margin of error. Mm-hmm. If you want to take his set, it went from a 16% gap, a lead of Ford over Bonnie to 13. Like it is still majority territory. And again, there's a lot of the campaign left to go. I'm not saying this is over, but there's no momentum anywhere as far as I can tell.
So
I'd add a couple things. Is like we have a couple moments coming up that could shift votes within the campaign, right? So debates are, that's a potential important inflection point where you might see some movement in those numbers. I think particularly between the Liberals and the NDP.
The Northern debate. The Northern debate doesn't change anything.
The Northern debate
go say
is
that
a
in Sault Ste. Marie, David. Come on.
The Northern debate is a town hall. Really.
As somebody who's hauled my ass out to Thunder Bay for that thing, I can tell you, right?
All right.
North Bay this year.
You be
North
as
Bay
dismissive of Northern Ontario as you like. The NDP will be happy to show up with bells on for that one. But I think and then of course the other thing is the last week of the campaign where you may start to see people kind of make up their mind in that last push ahead of the advance vote and
because they haven't made their mind up yet. Right.
Well, I mean, they're going to make up their mind. Frankly, and I think turnout is going to be the biggest issue. It's like, low turnout is really going to favor the PCs here, and the struggle for
Jesus,
the NDP turnout.
Oh my
mercy! Have mercy, Jordan. We got 15 days to go. You can't reach. You can't reach for turnout already. We'll die here on the vine of this pod if you're talking about turnout already. Holy moly!
Okay, I'm going to talk about other stuff.
If we turn out everybody who's ever voted NDP in the history of Ontario, and there is a sniper at the polling station picking off Conservatives, I can see a path.
Well, that took a turn.
Lawyer bursts into the pod. For the record, we wish to advise you that no one on this pod at any time has advocated the use of firearms against Conservative candidates.
Any ideas?
Can we go back to talking about the push-up challenge?
Yeah, let's talk about the push-up challenge.
Okay, was it a mistake? Did you guys think it was a mistake?
Yes,
I'm sure
it was a mistake. It ate her day. It ate her entire day. And I think that the Liberal campaign should consider the idea that letting Bonnie be Bonnie might not actually be the best move here, because the instinct was not good on this. It was a weird thing to say, and that clip of the weird thing is what overshadowed her announcements of the day on steel tariff day. So I think it made it harder for her to get into the actual story of the day because everybody was talking about this weird clip she had about push-ups.
But she was giving him a break. She was being very generous because she didn't challenge him on flexibility. She challenged him on strength.
Oh no, she came on. She came on my show yesterday.
Ethically,
she came on
morally.
She came on my show yesterday, and she said it didn't have to be push-ups. It could be burpees or rock climbing. But she actually doubled down on it.
No,
it could be a vape off. Oh, I think she's in trouble there.
Did she come on your show Did she come on your show just to reassure you that she was all right health-wise?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, later in the show,
curling 25-pound dumbbells. Let's fucking go.
I'm actually going to. I'm going to give her a blessing because she did come on my show. I've known her for many, many years. No surprise, my politics, but she came on. So kudos to her, but then she doubled down, which I thought was ridiculous.
Making T-shirts saying the gym is my turf. Okay, I'll give the contrary thesis for the hell of it. It was obviously a screw up. It was obviously like an unscripted, like whatever the hell popped into her head, popped out of her mouth kind of moment. It's on the front page of the Sun today, and it got picked up yesterday. And I know you're saying, oh well, that meant that it stepped on her day and she wasn't on terrace. Every day has been absolute yogurt. Every day has been a slog through rice pudding. So I don't know. I thought it kind of showed a little personality in life. I thought it punched through. It was kind of what, kind of counter programming. It wasn't intentional. I'm not pretending it's an act of genius, but even some liberals I was talking to yesterday, oh my God, this is such a mistake. And I'm kind of I don't know, man. It sort of showed a little, I just thought it was different. At least it broke through the frequency. And I think her best clip on tariffs would have been an unevent.
It's not like her healthcare announcement would have been the front page of the Sun.
Well, at least if she's talking about that, she's not talking about whether they've actually filled out their slate or not. So I guess there is that.
Which they have. We don't know who they are.
We don't know who they are. But people. Maybe it's another job.
Jesus,
for
they're
impressive,
and believe me, I know this is such. Yeah.
I thought she made one mistake though.
Save it. Last week, we heard from the Ontario Real Estate Association, or OREA, about how the Canadian dream of home ownership is slipping further out of reach for everyday Ontario families due to the lack of housing supply and prohibitive government costs driving up home prices. Oria's provincial election platform, A Home for Everyone 2025, offers ideas on how to rescue the dream of homeownership by focusing on 3 priority areas. Number 1, better consumer protections by eliminating the backlog at the Landlord and Tenant Board and mandating equal treatment for diverse families under the Condo Act. Number 2, building 1.5 million homes by 2031 by ending exclusionary zoning to allow 4plexes province-wide and increasing density near transit through building conversions. Number 3, lowering the cost of owning a home by limiting municipal development charges and allowing a multiple ownership model for housing options like duplexes and triplexes. The housing crisis won't be solved overnight, but Oria believes the next provincial government can take important steps towards restoring the dream of homeownership. For Oria's full election platform, head to oria.com/platform. It's our do-over segment. So what's a mistake our parties made yesterday? What's a mistake? What's something they did they shouldn't have done, or something that they didn't do that they should have done? All right, Deb.
So I alluded to this earlier, and it's less about it being a big mistake yesterday, but more of a caution for the premier going forward, particularly in the Northern debate, because it was actually in North Bay last time. I was there with the premier, and they asked the most obscure questions, as you guys all know, at the Northern debates, very, very local, and you run the risk of getting yourself into trouble. So yesterday, the premier's talking, as
They're
they all
mayors
were.
and stuff. It's a little bit of an unusual debate. It's not so much
It is.
ordinary folks. There's like mayors there, and they're asking serious questions about transfers for various things.
But you can get yourself into trouble, is my point.
Yeah.
And yesterday, the premier, all of them, were asked about the beluga whales at Marineland. And there's a CP Wire story running today about that. And so it wasn't a huge problem. I worry that the premier can get himself into trouble by not knowing his pivots, by not finding a way to get back to his core message on some of these errant issues. So not a big do-over for him, but it's more because of the debates coming up. I do worry about him stepping in it if he's not a little more sharp on these issues.
It would be an error for him to break into a verse of Baby Beluga. That would be strange. It would be off message and it would be alienating.
I think Raffi is never the wrong answer. That's always a good answer.
In the deep blue sea, swim so wild. Anyway.
Free Willy. Jordan?
Okay, so I think something that the NDP should have done over yesterday was they need to tell a story about momentum, and I think they missed a pretty good opportunity. So over the weekend,
that would be a fairy tale, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't. You'll get your turn. Over the weekend, the Liberals were, of course, they were talking about their Super Bowl ad and like, we've raised so much money that we can spend it on this Super Bowl ad. And I think we can debate whether it was a good use of money, but they talked about blowing past a $50,000 fundraising goal over the weekend. Well, the NDP, they managed to raise $200,000 on Saturday alone. And they weren't out there really telling that story. And I think actually that would have been a really good counter to some of the stories about, oh, did they have money for a Super Bowl ad or not? Like, there actually is a story to tell there. And I think they missed a chance to push that out while it was pretty fresh. So that would be my do-over for them. They got to use everything they have.
Isn't that walking around money in the Conservative campaign?
Seriously.
It's the cost of the trip to Washington. Hey, listen, Scott, your team already had a do-over yesterday. She did a press conference twice because nobody came the first time.
Oh, there we go.
All right, push-ups, buddy, push-ups.
$200,000 in Conservative campaign. They spend that on, I don't know, videos. I will... my do-over is for Bonnie Crombie in, I think it was the third press conference, but everyone's talking about the push-ups, which again, I'm not so sure, like, whatever, man, I think it punched through. But she also did this thing where she was talking about tariffs and she had this kind of uncomfortable moment where she was talking about the FTF, which is a fund that she wants to set up to protect
Yes,
Canadian
this is the second
Ontario
time she
jobs.
did this.
And she says it's the whatever fix Toronto and the rest of the province fund or whatever the Christ it's called. And then she's like, but some people call it the F Trump fund. And I'm like, just say fuck. You know what? You're 100 miles behind. Like, you want to get noticed? Just like make some arsehole at the Toronto Sun, like have to write a column going, I can't believe she's using profanity. This is an outrage. She doesn't look like a premier. She looks like some broad who hangs around the Legion, you know, or something like. So just say fuck. Just if you're going to go there, you got to go there. Like, you can't say, there's nothing lamer than when people go, I'm going to use the F word now. I don't want to say the word. I think we all know it. Wink, wink. Just if you're gonna go there, say fuck. Just blast them with fuck. And you know what? I actually think for all the options that are available, having yesterday said fuck Trump probably would have helped.
All right, let's do a quick flyby on the federal scene. Policy from Polyev yesterday.
And great visuals. Man, they were good.
Yeah, go
what
ahead,
a shit ball move. What a, like, seriously, what a shitty thing to do.
Why?
What a
What are you
shitty
talking
thing
about
to
it?
do. No.
Why?
He's very likely to be the prime minister in a couple of months. And he goes to Iqaluit and doesn't bother to tell the premier, doesn't speak to a single official that lives, breathes, works in Iqaluit.
Didn't talk to
Can't be bothered to
ITK.
communicate with a single. That is disrespectful. It is really fundamentally just, I'm going to come here and announce something that's going to disrupt, change, maybe for the better, maybe not. I don't know. Fundamentally alter the nature of your community. And I can't be bothered to speak to any of you, to alert you to the fact that I'm coming, that I'm saying this, and I'm doing this. So, you know, we can debate, I think, the heinous drop in foreign aid, which probably means he's withdrawing his support for Ukraine. We can debate the merits of having a military base up there. But to like show up there and to just ignore the people of the community, I just thought that was dreadful. Right?
Deb,
really
the premier did fire off a pretty hot letter about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's sort of tour 101, and I don't have the vehemence.
It's character.
Scott
He doesn't have the
does.
character. It's the way they operate.
Don't go that far.
It's
Scott.
for sure that. It is for sure they don't give a fuck.
I don't.
Somebody
think
said
that.
we let them know, and someone said no, don't piss on them. That's for sure what happened.
Well, I don't think you can say for sure that's what happened. I will concede that I think there's just some basic stuff that you do, particularly when you want to lead a province or a country and you're going into one of the communities that you hope to represent. So I agree with that. But I thought the announcement was solid. I think, you know, he maybe did a little bit of an error by not at least articulating some of the foreign aid cuts, because then people like Scott are able to say we're going to cut aid to Ukraine because there's no pushback.
Paying
on it.
attention.
But I think I listen, I think it's a great announcement. And I think it is in keeping with the topics of the day without inserting yourself too far into the debates around Trump. I mean, he's basically saying Trump's telling us we can't depend on them for protection. So here's where we're going to start and build some more ourselves. I liked it. And as I said, I thought the visuals were great.
Jordan, I thought that it was a case where the cut was as important to their public message as the action.
Totally.
Foreign aid is one of the very, very few things you can poll on that will test worse than defense spending as a use of public money. And so it felt to me like the fact that they chose a revenue source and chose that revenue source was as deliberate a message to their voters as the military action in the Arctic was.
And the timing is not accidental. I can't help but see a bit of a rhyme here, because you've got Polyev up there making that announcement about cutting foreign aid. And by the way, there's not as much money there as he might think. So it's not going to buy a lot of military bases. But you've got that happening at the exact same time that Elon Musk is dismantling USAID in the United States. And that's in the headlines. And I thought that was a really interesting choice of timing to go after foreign aid in Canada, as you're seeing a wholesale dismantling of really everything in the United States, including life-saving humanitarian aid, World Food Program stuff. All of it is being just shredded by Musk. So it's interesting that Polyev would choose to sort of kind of hitch on to that little moment that's happening. I did not think it was a good choice for him. I would agree with Deb that the visuals were good. But what I was really struck by was the content of his announcement, aside from what Scott talked about, which is absolutely such a fail, especially to go out to such a close-knit place like the North and not speak to people ahead of time. It's paternalistic. It's bad practice. And then I think it was great. It was quite right that he got slapped down by the premier. This guy's running to be prime minister. He has to show that he has some capacity to work with people and to understand what's going on the ground. He absolutely missed the mark on that. But a lot of the things that he talked about in the announcement, again, this is just the challenge that he's in right now. There's not huge differences really between what Liberals would talk about or what New Democrats would talk about when it comes to increasing presence in the Arctic. Like, we're really into like pretty fine shades of differentiation between the parties. There is a big challenge for Poilievre right now when he's speaking about issues that are linked in some way to Trump and tariffs and reorienting his campaign around that. There's not a lot of shades between him and the Liberals. And so I thought yesterday you could almost visually see the triangulation that they were trying to do. And a lot of it's in rhetoric. So he's got that really hot, he takes a really hot tone on it. And the cuts were part of that, trying to differentiate. But I would agree with you, David. Like, I think that what was intended to float to the top of that announcement was number one, the visual, and number two, the cuts. And the rest of it was really not the main point of it. So it's interesting to watch the gears at work there. And I'm not sure that it's very comfortable for them yet. I still think that they are struggling to find their footing in this new reality.
Right.
Just think if you're going to barge into someone's living room and tell them that you're changing where the sofa and the television is, you ought to let them know first.
Well, he probably considers that government to be part of the liberal industrial complex that comes up with all these crazy fucking programs that don't do anything. And the premier fired a bunch of those initiatives back at him in the letter.
Yeah, but if we have to respect the fact that voters elected Trump, and, you also have to respect the fact that people pick their governments in Nunavut.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and he'll find out, right? Like, people don't take kindly to that,
Yeah, but obviously it's not addressed in votes at Nunavut. I mean, the big story is the big story is they're fighting their way into the frame, and they're trying to find territory that works for them in this tariff trade. Yep. So where's strong ground for conservatives? Defense, right? Where are we more credible than liberals? Let's talk about defense.
Yeah,
agreed.
I agree with that.
Sure.
Greetings, Canadian political pod listener. I'm your narrator, Gary, an artificial intelligence-generated voice. Exciting and serious sounding is what we typed in the AI voiceover input field. And boom, Gary exists. Hey, do you know what's not artificial? Not even one bit? The highly influential audiences air quotes media podcasts offer to its advertisers. And I say that with all the sincerity a machine learning, data-optimized, predictive network of interconnected neural nodes can muster. Whether your ad message is on Curse of Politics, the Hurly-Burly, Hotel Pacifico, or the brand new Race to Replace, you will be reaching cabinet ministers, members of parliament, the political class, the C-suite, and corporate Canada, leading journalists, and tens of thousands of engaged Canadians. People saying this is a unique political moment is underselling it. Policy is under scrutiny. A party leader is being voted on. The Ontario election is underway. There will be a new prime minister. And then there's the guy living in the White House who calls us the 51st state. Does anyone remember another time like this? I'm instantly scouring millions of data points to answer my own rhetorical question. No, you do not. This is when you need to get your message to the decision makers. Email us at contact@airquotesmedia.com. You'll be dealing with Jill and Todd, who are real, not artificial at all people, and generally very friendly. Well, Jill is anyway. We're still deciding about Todd.
Okay, let's wrap it up. Blessings or curse?
I have one. Ford's going to go to Washington today. Everybody says Ford goes to Washington. He's going to speak to the Chamber of Commerce. He's going to do a ton of media. He's going to get all this, publicity. It's going to help reinforce the core themes of the election that are working so clearly in his favor. And I think all that's true. And I think nitpicking from the sidelines, you're an opposition leader about the equally true but kind of pointless thing that, well, this should be an election expense and it's a terrible thing this would happen during the writ period. It is what it is. but I do think there's still risk in today for Ford. And, if he goes down there and repeats what he talked about yesterday, which is, listen, we need to move on the fentanyl czar. We need to implicitly agree with the critique of Trump. We're going to tell you what you want to hear rather than what I want Ontario to hear. Then he could miss the political play, I think, slightly. If I was Ford, I would go to that U.S. Chamber of Commerce lunch and I would open it by announcing that Starlink contract is not under threat, that it's not going to be maybe reversed. I would actually kill the thing dead right there in front of everybody and say, I know everybody in this whole U.S. Capitol is scared shitless of Elon Musk. We're not in Ontario. Fuck him and fuck that Starlink contract. That's how I would kick things off.
I thought
you agree with Jagmeet Singh then that Elon Musk
his idea was
is a
100% tariff on Teslas. 100% tariff on Tesla. I just thought it was a great idea.
Right, I'm talking about the focus on Musk. Go at Musk.
That's it. Yeah.
Go to anything close to. I just think it's a point. It's actually also seals off what I thought was a confusing move on the part of Ford by killing it and then unkilling the contract. So kill the thing dead now, but kill it right at the foot of their castle wall.
Jordan.
I am going to send a blessing out to Mart and the NDP campaign because I thought yesterday where it was a tricky day to do a dance to get, because the tariff story was back out. It's a very tough story to get into. So they did their health announcement and then they got to Hamilton and they were meeting with steelworkers. And like, that is great. And so they, I think, did a good job yesterday in being ready with the visuals, having the types of meetings. So being seen with the workers who are going to be impacted immediately, broadcast the right message in terms of where the NDP does have some ground on the tariff issue. So I was really happy to see that the agility, they were able to make that happen. And so I think well done to the team there in terms of being in the right place at the right time with the right visual.
Hey, Deb?
Well, I already mentioned it. I mean, I will send out my blessing to Bonnie. My blessing for Bonnie yesterday was a little tongue in cheek, just hoping that she was well because she was MIA. But she had the balls to come on my show on Newstalk 1010 and defend her push-up challenge. And I even asked her if this was fat.
Is that what it takes? Because I thought you had Scott on your show occasionally.
Defending my statements. I'm not afraid to meet Deb microphone to microphone.
I think the requisite thing for Scott is no sense of shame. That's the important thing. Like,
listen, I asked her if she was fat shaming the premier, because I think in the back of her mind, she wasn't deliberate about it, but I think she was thinking, where can I challenge him that makes sense? And she's thinking, here's me and here's him, and I'm going to do push-ups. And listen, if the genders were reversed, can you imagine the conversation we'd be having today?
It is a terrible idea to ever think that Ford could be shamed in any way.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But David, do you have could you go through the crosstabs on tummy for us and let us know what they say with respect to relative advantage?
Best able to grow a large tummy, I think, is Ford 72. All right. My blessing goes out to Arif Farani, whom I've known for a very long time. Really good guy, lifelong liberal. I was proud to have him as my justice minister. He announced he was not going to be running in the next election, and I'm sorry to hear that. I would have liked to see him carry on. But anyway, thanks for your service. All right, folks, that's the show for today. I want to thank our original sponsor, Aurea, and our polling sponsor, Enbridge. I'd like to thank all of you who listen to this at some point in the day while you're grinding your way through a campaign. And I want to thank the three of you for being here again. I couldn't do without you. I mean, I could, but I wouldn't want it. Glad you're here.
Even less eventful.
See you tomorrow morning with maybe something or maybe not. You never know.